Hello viewers, I am Konkana Sharma, Assistant Professor in the Department of Political Science, Thing College, Nagaon, Assam. And today I'll be speaking on the topic Sovereignty in the Era of Globalization, Revisiting the Concepts. In my today's presentation, I have tried to cover globalization, its meaning and definition, various types of globalization, meaning and types of sovereignty, the development of this concept of sovereignty, then how globalization has affected state sovereignty, and how some nation states have been able to resist the very onslaught of globalization, and then the conclusion. Now, what is globalization? It is the process by which the world is becoming increasingly interconnected as a result of massively increased trade, technology, and cultural exchange. In the words of John Baylis and Steve Smith, it is a process of increasing interconnectedness between societies such that events in one part of the world more and more have effects on people and societies far away. There are basically three types of globalization: political globalization, economic globalization, and cultural globalization. Coming to the very idea of political globalization, it entails growing power and influence of international organizations like the United Nations and World Health Organization. The idea is to approach towards a concept of world government or global village. Now, the second type of globalization, that is economic globalization, it is a process through which the world economy is increasingly getting interdependent on one another, and institutions like IMF and World Bank are playing a pivotal role. It also reflects expansion and mutual integration of market frontiers. The third type of globalization is cultural globalization. It refers to accepting ideas, values, and cultural products like food, clothes, music, etc. across borders. It is also anticipated that globalization might lead to wholesale homogenization of global culture. Now, what is sovereignty? It is one of the major elements of the state. It can be defined as the right and power to make the ultimate decision about the terms of existence of a whole territorially based body politic. It is also identical with the right and power of self-determination. It debars any external body from dictating terms on matters that concerns them. How the very concept of sovereignty has developed. It arose from the reaction of European states to the doctrine of the Holy Roman Empire that was in 962 AD. However, it was the Treaty of Westphalia which recognized sovereignty as an important dimension of state power. Many political theorists had forwarded their notion on sovereignty, and the likes of Niccolo Machiavelli, Jean Bodin, Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, J.G. Rousseau, John Austin should be mentioned. The very prominent statement of John Austin on the sovereign is like this: if a determinate human superior, not in the habit of obedience to a like superior, receive habitual obedience from the bulk of a given society, that determinate superior is sovereign in the society, and the society, including the sovereign, is a society political and independent. There are several types of sovereignty: titular sovereignty, internal and external sovereignty, legal and political sovereignty, de jure and de facto sovereignty, and popular sovereignty. Now coming to the main focus of my presentation, which is how has globalization affected state sovereignty and Taking up the economic dimension at the very outset, the internationalization of markets brings with a new set of limitations on the nation states. New constraint on freedom of the nation state through international institutions like World Bank and IMF. Membership to an international organization has tremendous impact on the sovereignty of states. This can be appreciated from four sides. The activities of international organizations can have quasi-legislative, administrative, and supervisory as well as jurisdictional effects. This hinders the freedom of member states to act as they please. Also, the very coming up of the MNCs has led to the fall of the local and indigenous market. Many states sign various treaties with these institutions for favorable conditions of trade and commerce, but the conditions attached to such treaties might not be favorable for their national interest. This scenario gives rise to neocolonialism, which is a way through which the colonial or capitalist countries indirectly rule over smaller countries, not necessarily politically but economically. How has globalization affected state sovereignty? Taking the political dimension this time. So, the capitalist countries or the developed countries try to dominate the developing countries through interfering into their internal policies. As mentioned, the rise of transnational institutions like the United Nations also affected political sovereignty of the state. There has also been erosion of national citizenship. The notion that an individual should be a citizen of one and only country and that the state has exclusive claims to the person's loyalty. For many states, there is no longer a sharp distinction between citizens and non citizens. Permanent residents, guest workers, refugees, and undocumented immigrants are entitled to some bundle of rights even if they cannot vote. The ease of travel and desire of many countries to attract either capital or skilled workers have increased incentives to make citizenship more flexible. Another dimension is that there has also been an impact of transnational NGOs. Transnational non governmental organizations have much influence over state activities. Throughout the 19th century, there were transnational movements to abolish slavery, promote the rights of women, and improve conditions for workers. The number of transnational NGOs, however, has grown tremendously from around 200 in 1909 to over 17,000 today. The availability of inexpensive and very fast communications technology has made it easier for such groups to organize and make an impact on public policy and international law. Such groups prompt questions about sovereignty because they appear to threaten the integrity of domestic decision making. Now, how has this very process of globalization affected the culture of a particular country? And this is through the very imposition of Western culture in many countries. And there has been a blind acceptance of outside culture in these countries. The sad factor is that new generation has been oblivious of their own culture and certain beliefs and ideas that are basically Western in nature has been diminishing indigenous cultures in many countries. However, many nation states have been able to resist the very onslaught of globalization, and this is mainly through the localization of economy. Hence, over dependence on foreign products should be done away with. There also has to be a very strengthening of grassroots level governance in some countries. The role of the state also needs to be revised. It needs to strengthen its welfare role for the downtrodden. Some states indeed have maintained their traditional role even at the wake of globalization. From the above discussion, one can conclude that Globalization, indeed, has led to some decline of the role of the state. However, in some areas, the state still stands strong. The concept of globalization may not be very helpful for the developing countries. However, one should rather welcome the positive aspects of globalization and try to minimize the negative attributes of it. Thank you.